So imagine someone who recently stood trial in the special criminal court, like a massive, high-profile case. And now, imagine that exact same person on a political ballot drawing these huge, fiercely loyal crowds right in the heart of a European capital.
Yeah, it is wild. I
Yeah.
mean, how does a modern democracy even begin to process something like that?
Right.
It really doesn't process it easily, that is for sure. What we are watching is basically a real-time stress test of the political establishment. It is happening on a very localized stage right now, but that underlying friction is something we are seeing in democracies all over the world.
Well, welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive. Today, we are unpacking a really fascinating stack of sources. We've got political analysis articles, an actual anti-establishment voter guide, and some very dense electoral mechanics research.
Oh yeah, the mechanics are key here.
Absolutely. And we are applying all of this to the highly competitive upcoming by-elections in Ireland. Specifically, we are focusing on the major battlegrounds of Dublin Central and Galway West.
Two very different but very important arenas.
Exactly. Our mission today is to unpack this intense friction that is just completely redefining the Irish political landscape. I mean, it is a grinding, sparks-flying clash between the traditional establishment and a rising, highly vocal populist movement.
It is a massive shift.
It is. But just to set the ground rules for you listening right off the bat, we are looking at rhetoric today from our sources that spans the far left, the center, and the far right.
Right. It runs the entire gamut.
So I want to make it crystal clear. We are not taking any sides here. We are not endorsing any candidate or any platform. Our only job today is to impartially report and unpack the fascinating ideas contained in the original source material.
Because, honestly, if you want to understand where global politics is heading, you have to look at these pressure points. And right now, these local elections are acting as a massive pressure valve for a population that feels incredibly frustrated.
So have you ever wondered what happens when the unstoppable force of grassroots populism hits the immovable object of institutional governance?
Well, we're about to find out.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want to start right at the center of that frustration with the disruptors, because these are the candidates whose entire narrative goal is to just shake the foundation of how things are run.
Shake it, or in some cases, tear it down completely.
Right. And I want to start in the urban heart of the country, Dublin Central. Because I was looking through the background on Gerard Hutch, who goes by the nickname The Monk, and I am honestly just trying to wrap my head around his candidacy.
It is definitely unconventional.
That is an understatement. He is running as a completely independent outsider.
Right.
We just mentioned his recent very high-profile acquittal in the special criminal court. He doesn't have a traditional party apparatus behind him. Nothing.
No party machine at all.
Right. Yet he has this deeply entrenched, almost folkloric support in specific inner-city neighborhoods. Like, why? How does that work?
What's fascinating here is that you really have to look at the history of those specific neighborhoods. For decades, I mean, long before his recent legal battles, Hutch built a reputation in his local community by directly funding youth initiatives and local boxing clubs.
Oh, wow. So he was putting money directly into the community.
Exactly. So to his core base, he isn't seen through the lens of national media or government ministers. And those ministers, by the way, have heavily criticized his run.
Yeah, the sources say they called it a mockery of democracy.
Right. They point to his association with underworld feuds and say he is making a joke of the democratic process. Some critics even point out he frankly hasn't a clue about actual policy. But here's the thing. To disenfranchise voters in that specific pocket of Dublin, the criticism actually fuels his appeal.
Because they feel like the state abandoned them a long time ago anyway.
Precisely. If you feel that the traditional political class has overseen sky-high rents, neglected your infrastructure, and just generally ignored your community, well, you aren't going to the ballot box looking for a highly polished white paper on economic reform.
Right, you don't care about a white paper.
No. You are going to the ballot box to send a shockwave. Even some of his own supporters admit he doesn't have a traditional policy platform. But that is the entire point. Electing a notorious outsider is the ultimate protest vote.
It is a massive middle finger to the establishment.
Exactly.
Okay, so that is pure disruption. And you actually see a totally different flavor of that same urban disruption with another independent in Dublin Central, Malachi Steenson.
Yes, Steenson is a very different profile.
He's a veteran solicitor, right?
Yeah.
But he has emerged as this leading figure in the Ireland is Full movement. And his base seems to be really rooted in working-class pockets of Dublin that just feel completely left behind by gentrification and state neglect.
Yes, Steenson's movement focuses very heavily on the placement of international protection centers for asylum seekers in local neighborhoods. And as a solicitor, he provides a highly articulate, legally structured voice to what is basically street-level anti-immigration activism.
But pushing back on that for a second, is he just capturing local anger, or is there a broader strategy? Because his critics, and that includes NGOs and mainstream parties, they argue that his intense laser focus on immigration just completely overshadows the actual macroeconomic reasons behind the housing shortage.
Well, absolutely. They view him as deeply polarizing, but that polarization is the strategy.
Wait, really? The polarization is intentional?
For a disruptive candidate,
Right.
yes. Polarization generates visibility. It forces everyone to talk about you. But I should point out, this isn't just an urban inner-city phenomenon. If we leave Dublin and look at the rural dynamic in Galway West, the disruption takes on a completely different shape.
Even if the underlying anger is very similar. Right.
Exactly.
Right, because in Galway West, which is a huge 17-candidate ballot, by the way, you were looking at rural and regional grievances. You have A.J. Kenny, backed by the Irish People Party, running on this anti-lockdown, country-first, nationalist housing platform.
Yes, and again, mainstream analysts argue his platform is fundamentally xenophobic. They say it takes genuine infrastructural failures like the massive hospital wait time you see out west and basically misdirects that anger into scapegoating migrants.
And right alongside him, in Galway West, you have Noel Thomas, running for Independent Ireland. And this is a fascinating pivot into rural agrarian populism.
It really is.
This one caught my attention because it feels like a completely different demographic from the inner city. He is backed by farmers and rural business owners. Why are they so angry?
Well, because they feel fundamentally ignored by a Dublin-centric elite. There is this deep-seated feeling in rural Ireland that traditional parties have essentially sold out agricultural interests.
Sold them out how?
To push green transition mandates,
Yeah.
basically. Mandates coming from the capital or from the EU. The farmers feel like they are paying the literal price for urban environmental policies, but Thomas carries intense controversy as well.
Yeah, the arson investigation.
Right. It is worth remembering he was investigated after an arson attack at a local hotel that was designated for asylum seekers. And that happened shortly after he publicly declared, quote, "the inn is full."
Man. So we have urban populism, we have rural populism, right-wing nationalism. But then, looking at the sources, there is Aeon 2.
Ah, Aeon 2.
I have to admit, looking at their platform, I was genuinely confused. How does a party survive in modern politics, being socially conservative-like, strongly pro-life, but economically left of center?
It is a paradox, for sure.
Right, like they want a strong welfare state and higher health spending, but tighter borders. It feels like they just break the standard political compass.
They absolutely break the traditional left-right paradigm, and that makes them a fascinating curveball in these elections. Left-wing factions argue their social stances are totally out of touch with modern secular Ireland.
While the hard-right factions probably complain their economic policies are basically socialist.
Exactly. But if you step back and look at all these disruptors, from the inner-city independents to the rural agrarians to ideological curveballs like Aeon 2, there is a common thread.
What connects them all?
The profound feeling that decisions are being made by a disconnected elite. An elite who do not actually have to live with the consequences of those decisions.
Yeah.
For the people backing these candidates, the primary goal right now isn't necessarily to govern the country.
It's not.
No. The goal is to bring raw, unfiltered disruption directly into the parliament.
So they're acting like political fire alarms.
That is a good way to look at it.
They are jarring, they are incredibly loud, and they are basically impossible to ignore. And they are pointing at very real structural fires like housing and hospital waits. But being a fire